So, welcome everyone to the session today on really kind of focusing our subject on file management. When we refer to file management in the kind of Microsoft 365 realm, there's a lot of different places and a lot of different ways that we can actually store files. But depending on where you store them, you'll get different features. So we want to make sure that you're comfortable with what those options are for you and show you some of the built-in features that you're going to have in these different areas. So each of these are going to be integrated together. So when we talk about working in our Microsoft 365 environment, we're talking about cloud storage. So when we mention OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, we're really referring to saving files to the cloud. With that being said, that means that you have to have an internet connection. Now, we will talk briefly about what if I don't have an internet connection, how am I going to get to my files? We'll talk a little bit about that towards the end, but just so you know, when we talk about cloud-based, it does mean internet connection. Also, you will need a Microsoft license, of course, to be utilizing SharePoint, Teams, or OneDrive to get to those files or to be able to save those files. We use these cloud-based locations because they offer different benefits than if you were actually using the network drive situation or just simply using your C drive or a flash drive or whatever other device you might have. Microsoft cloud-based storage locations are going to give you a lot of additional choices as far as what it is that you can do and how you can access these files. So with that being said, let's actually take a look first at utilizing things in a SharePoint environment. So when we talk about file storage in SharePoint, we're really going to be referring to the fact that in SharePoint, which is an internet-based website look of an application. So organizations can have a SharePoint site created that everybody in the company can have access to, or we can limit it to specific people having rights to certain areas on these SharePoint sites. But every SharePoint site includes what is called a document library. And document libraries are where we can save our files that we want to share with others. So a big difference between the other applications that we're going to be referring to, OneDrive is going to be more for you personally to save your files. It's like having a C drive, but it's cloud-based. Only you will have access to it. But when it comes to a SharePoint document library, it's meant to be shared. That's why it's in SharePoint. So right now I'm just showing you a SharePoint site called Our Intranet. There's different ways that you'll be able to navigate to get to the document libraries, and they are a URL. Let me show you what I mean by that. If I go to the menu at the top, I've got this shortcut menu. I can click Documents, and it's going to take me into a document library. Notice on my browser, I have a URL at the top, the web address. So if I want quick, easy access to this document library to get to my files, I could actually save it as a favorite. So I could go to whatever browser you're using, save it as a bookmark, save it as a favorite, that kind of thing, so you can easily get back to it without having to go into SharePoint, click Documents. You're going to find there's a lot of other ways to get to your files as well, which we'll go through here in just a moment. But every time you come into a document library, what you're going to find is a menu going across the top. That menu is going to be directly related to managing the document library itself. Now, each SharePoint site that is created can have more than one document library. So that if we wanted to have one document library where it's going to have files that the whole company can have access to, then we could have a different document library in the same SharePoint site that only certain people have rights to. SharePoint is a very powerful application, and it gives us a lot of background capabilities. We won't go through all of that, of course, today, but just so you have the, understanding that it is going to be the most powerful app. Teams is next, then we have OneDrive. So we have a lot of flexibility when it comes to managing SharePoint. And you're going to see some of those options here today. So first off, when we look at this menu going across the top, how do files even get into a document library? Well, we can actually upload them. We can drag and drop them. We could be in an application like Microsoft Word, SharePoint, etc., or Microsoft Word, Excel, those kind of applications, and we could just choose the SharePoint site that and the name of the document library that we want to save the file to. So we don't necessarily have to be in the document library itself. We could be in a different place. And I'll show you, we could even be in Microsoft Teams, or we could be in OneDrive. So we have this great interconnectivity. Okay, so we definitely have the capability of being able to really connect from SharePoint to Teams to OneDrive. I'll demonstrate that here very shortly. But just so you can see the menu going across the top, if we want to add something new, it can be an existing file or a brand new file. And if you go to the new icon, this is where you could create a new file, or you could actually create a new folder. So when I come in, if I wanted to create a new folder to save files in, etc., we have the ability to come into this new category. So we have the ability also to edit this menu. So if you want to have Word documents, Excel files, PowerPoint presentations, we can actually edit this new menu and add these other apps that you could have as new file options when you click on the drop down. So if I just click Word, Excel, PowerPoint, just so you can see, I can click Save. And now when I go back to new, I have the ability of creating these other new types of files directly from here. And if I do that, like if I click this Excel workbook, it's going to automatically open the workbook. I can save the file by simply going to the top left. Sorry, not now. I'm going to go to the top left where it says book, give it the actual name. And maybe I want to name this 2026 upcoming projects. I just press enter and it's automatically saved to the document library that I was in when I created it. So just so you know, that's how it works. Now I'm just going to go ahead and close that window. And that file has now been added directly to this document library. So you can see it listed right here. Okay. But also if you have an existing file, you could do File Explorer and SharePoint Document Library on split windows, drag and drop a file over. That would be an easy way. Or you could click Upload from the menu. If you do Upload, you could choose Files, navigate to your computer to wherever those files are stored at, select the files, and you could do more than one at a time. And then you can click open and those files will then automatically be added to the document library that you were in at the time. Now, if I had a new folder and I wanted those files to go in that folder, let me show you how that would work. Because right now, the way that I'm sorted, you're not actually seeing any folders. There's no folders here. So if I go to new and choose folder, maybe I want to call this 2026 projects, press enter, and I now have that folder there. If I want any of these files to be in that folder, I can hesitate my mouse on the name of the file, click and drag it up to that folder and drop it so that it automatically will move the file into that folder. Now, of course, that's just one way to do that. You could select multiple files and move them all at the same time as well. Different options depending on what it is that you need. But sometimes we get started by just putting files in the document library, and then later we realize we need folders to kind of have them be more organized. You can always do that at any time. Okay. But other things that I want you to be aware of when it comes to working across this menu, if this is a document library that you want to have available in OneDrive, there is an icon at the top called Add Shortcut to OneDrive. So if I click that icon, it's going to create a shortcut in my OneDrive to be able to access this document library. Now, of course, once I go to OneDrive, I'll show you how to get to these same exact files. Okay. And then also we have this option here called Pin to Quick Access. When we go into places like Microsoft OneDrive, we can actually see a quick access menu on the left-hand side. And if you want this document library to be that available by just clicking on it from the quick access, we can say Pin to Quick Access. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So when I go into OneDrive, you'll see that this is available on the menu. So I'll come back and show you those in just a moment. We also have some automation features that are built in under this automate options, but I'll come back and talk a little bit about the automation here in just a minute. Before then, I want to go to the actual files. So the list of the files that you're seeing down at the bottom, they have different columns. The first column, which you can't see till you hesitate, is actually a circle where you can click to select a file. Otherwise, you're going to have the type column, which is showing you the icon based on the type of file that is in this document library. So whether it's a Word document, a PDF, a JPEG, etc. Then you have the name column, the modified, who modified the file. You have a sign-off status, which I'll explain that in just a few minutes. I currently have the file size, and then you're going to see this add column. That add column is a way that you can actually add additional columns to this view that you could actually put in what is referred to as metadata for search capabilities and organizational options. That's a little bit beyond the scope of our class today, but just so you're aware that you could do that. But otherwise, how do you manage a file once it's in a document library? Well, one way is go to the file and just hesitate your mouse. From there, if I hesitate on the name of it, this little window pops up and it tells me the total read time. It's giving me conversations related to it. I could go in and view other details. But there's also some additional menu options on the right-hand side. This first icon is the ... is for more actions, where it's going to give you a full menu. I'll come back to that one in just a second. We have a share icon, which is a universal icon with that arrow that I'll demonstrate that, but what it does is allows you to share the file with somebody that doesn't have current access to the document library. So if I wanted to share this with a vendor or somebody that isn't a part of this, doesn't happen to be a part of this SharePoint site, I could share it with somebody else. Otherwise, keep in mind that every file in the SharePoint document library is available to everybody that is a member of that SharePoint site. So whoever has rights to the site, by default, will have rights to the document library. You always want to keep that in the back of your mind. But this third icon across with the stars and the lines, that's actually your AI icon. We can get into doing different AI tools along with that. We're not going to worry so much about that in this session. We do other sessions related to AI and using Copilot and things like that. But I do want to mention that I usually right-click. Instead of clicking on the ... a lot of times I just do a right click on the name of the file. It's going to bring up this full menu. Otherwise, we can click on the ... to bring up this full menu as well. This is going to be the menu that you can get to manage the entire file. All kinds of things about managing that file. So it's going to give you choices like, how do you want to open it? By default, it's going to open in an internet browser in the online version of the application. But if you want it to open in the desktop app, you certainly can do that. Otherwise, you can preview the file. We also have share capabilities. We even have different AI capabilities built through here. We could delete the file. We could save it as a favorite because different areas will have a favorites category that we could be using. We can download it. We can rename it. We also can pin it to the top. So if this is a file that you and your coworkers are working on regularly right now, you could just click pin to top and it's going to leave that file as an icon at the top of the document library until you unpin it. Then it will go back into the standard order of where it always was available. But if you want quick, easy access to it while you're actively working on it, this would be a quick way to get to it, especially since we're sorted by default A to Z. If you have a file that you would have to scroll down for, it might be easier just to pin it to the top. But I'm going to go back and do a right click on this file again. A couple of other things that I want to make you aware of is the version history. As soon as a file is saved to a cloud, whether it's OneDrive, within Teams, or within this SharePoint document library, we will have access to version history. So if you had a file that you had saved to your C drive, and it's been being worked on for a year, and now you brought it into the cloud. Once it comes into the cloud, it doesn't know the history of from its prior life, only starts with the version history capture as soon as it's saved to the cloud. But how does it work? Well, all we have to do is click version history. We could do so from this menu. We can also do it directly within OneDrive. We could do it also within File Explorer. We can do it within the application itself. So if I'm in Excel, Microsoft Word, whatever, we can access version history. But it's going to show you every version of the file, including the modified date. You can see who last modified it, what the size is. So if I wanted to go back to a previous version of this file and open it, all I have to do is click on the link under the modified column to open that version. Back in the day when we had network drives, we'd have to talk to IT about getting access to something off the backup to get to our file, a previous version of it. Here, we maintain it ourselves. So if I click on this link for this modified for the second version, what it's going to do is automatically take me into that version of that file. Sorry, it opened on my other screen there. You can see right underneath the ribbon it's giving me this previous version. To make this previous version become the latest version, I could click restore. So if this were the version that I want to become current, I could click the restore button, but I could still go back to the previous version, of course, because it's still going to be there. But just so you know, you do have the ability to be able to do this. I'm not necessarily going to do that right now, but just so you're aware that you could. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and close it, and I'm not going to save any of my changes to that, but just so you could see, I could go into that previous version. But this last version, which was from April of 2023 of this particular file, had a sign-off status that it was rejected. I'll show you in a moment how you can actually send a file for approval, and whoever you send it to can either approve or reject the file. So if they want you to make changes to the file before it goes live or whatever the case would be, it's a great workflow process that we have built in to SharePoint, which works great. But I'm going to go ahead and close this version history for right at the moment. And the feature that I want to show you is, what if I have these files in this document library and I want to make changes to a file, but I don't want other people to be able to access it while I make these changes. By default, when you have a file saved to a cloud and things like places like SharePoint or Teams, whoever wants to open that file that has rights to that library can open it and make changes to it by default. But if you don't want people to get into it while you make your changes, you can check the file out. All you have to do is right-click or go to that dot, dot, dot menu, and down at the bottom of that pop-up menu, hesitate on More. Hesitate on More, then click this option here called Checkout. That is going to put a red circle with an arrow next to that file. Anybody else that's in this library will see that you have it opened exclusively. They would not be able to open it and make changes to it. So I'm going to go ahead and open that file now. I'm going to make some changes to that file. Then I'm going to check it back in so that others would be able to utilize the file. And when I do that, they can open it, Kelly. Yes, I just saw your chat in there. They can open it and print it, but it's not going to have, of course, any of the updates. Okay. But anyway, just so you could see, when I come into that file, I can go ahead and make any of my necessary changes. So if I want to put like January 2026 on this, whatever changes I make, it's automatically being saved because it's in a cloud. I don't have to click save or anything like that. I'm just going to go ahead and close that file. And then that has been updated with this link now, but I still have it checked out so other people can't see the changes I just made. If I go back and hesitate on the name of that file, I can see a menu that pops up like I showed you a minute ago, and I can simply click check in from that menu. If you click check in, you could actually leave a comment or a note letting people know what you did when you had that checked out. So I could say that I changed the dates to reflect 2026. Then I click check in. Now anyone can go in and open it and they'll see all the changes that I had made. But what happened with that version history? Now, by the way, it is checked in, but just so you know, and for some reason it's taking mine a second to sync right now. But what's going to happen then is if you go back into that version history, the last column on the right, so let me go back into version history just to show you. The last column on the right, I have a new version of the file. I did it today at 1:25 Eastern time. The notes that I wrote in are part of the comments on the right-hand side. So that's how the comments get entered in there, is when the file has been checked out. So great feature. But let's check out a couple of other things that we can do exclusively here in SharePoint that we can't always do other places like OneDrive. If I go back to that same file and do a right click, I'm going to hesitate on this feature called Automate. And from there, I'm going to hesitate on Flows. And then it's going to open up this Request Sign-Off capability. I'm going to click Request Sign-Off. This is actually a built-in Power Automate workflow that we will get a pane on the right-hand side that all we have to do is say, who do we want to send this to so that they can review it and choose approve or reject. Then we can type in a little email to go along with it, because what's going to happen is they will get an email message with a link to the file. They will also be notified in Microsoft Teams. So right now it's making sure that I'm signed in to the appropriate applications that it uses to run this workflow. I'm going to click Create Flow. And then I'll be able to put in who do I want to send this to? What do I want to put in the email? I'm sorry, it's really kind of sluggish and I'm directly connected to the internet. I'm not sure why it's so slow right now. But anyway, just so you could see, I'm just going to send this to myself so that you could see the full action of how this works. But I'm going to say, please review this file. Then down at the bottom, I'm going to click Run Flow. Once you click Run Flow, it's going to send notifications to that person or multiple people, depending on who you send it to. Right now, this file is going to change this sign-off status to say pending. Now, it takes a second for it to update that, but I will receive an email notification and a notification in Microsoft Teams letting me know that I have this approve request. So if I go to my activity in Microsoft Teams, Here's that Jolynn sent a file for request because I'm playing both parties. On the right-hand side, when I click on that, you can see it says, please approve apps for leaders. And the message that I typed in was, please review this file. Here's the file I could open and review. Here's the status of where it's at right now. It's pending response. Once I review the file, I can come back in here or in the email that I received, and I can put in comments. Change the color to, or I should say color from red to blue, then you can share with the team. I'm going to click approve, and that person is going to get notified again, letting them know that this was approved. It updates it in other places as well, like the document library. Now, just so you know, when I do this, it's updating me multiple times saying that the final status is here, blah, blah, blah. I know because I'm playing both sides of things, but you'll only get that one notification. By the way, you also, if you have your banner notifications turned on, where you get that pop-up window, you'll see that as well. So Outlook, Teams, activity, and the banner notification. Matthew, did we have a question?
Yes, yeah, we have two actually.
Okay.
The first one is, can the checkout option be set as the default so that anyone opening the document checks it out by default?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Not possible, not even with Power
I don't
Automate.
think so. I don't think so.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. The second question is, can they make change? This is just for last. Can they make changes similar to track changes?
Oh, this is not for track changes, by the way. You would want to send it for review the other way, have that file just be tracking the changes, because this person really isn't going to go in there and make changes to the file during this process.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so that would be a separate flow to track the changes of the file versus, yeah, this.
Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you,
Good questions. You bet. So anyway, let me go back to the document library itself. And you can see that the sign-off status has now changed to approved. So it was pending in between all of that, just so you could see. We'll know that this file was approved, plus that happens to store that also in that version history. Now, there are a couple of other built-in workflows that we don't have to create that are available for working with a file or an entire document library. So I could even use some built-in automation by going to the menu at the top that is managing the entire document library. By going to Automate, one of the options we have is called Rules. If I click Create a Rule, it takes me into 4 different squares that I could start with. Like, if I want to take action when a file or metadata is modified, I want to set up a notification for that. Or what if a new file is added to the document library? Do I want to be notified, or do we need to notify somebody? Also, I might want to know if somebody deletes a file out of that document library, or a specific date related to that file in the metadata is approaching. Let's say I want to know if a new file is added. If I choose any of those options, it opens up a nice little wizard that gives you how to set this rule up. So when a new file is added, I could choose always or give it a condition, because I could say if the name has the word invoice, I want to get a notification. Otherwise, I won't be notified. So you can manage that a little bit. Also, who do you want to send the file to? Or I'm sorry, send the notification to. I'm just going to leave it on send an email to. Then I can put in an email address, or I could just choose who modified the file, created the file, or I could say myself. I'm going to say I want to get a notification. I also can put in a custom message down at the bottom, and I could say something like, a new file was added to the document library. just so you could see you could do that. Then you simply click Create. We don't have to know a bunch of other things about Power Automate to create these. It's pretty straightforward on its process, but it automatically opens up the Manage Rules window, which is the window where we can go to manage all the rules for this document library. So you can see there was another one that was created. Now I'm just going to go ahead and close that. And if a new file gets added, so if I create a brand new one or I upload an existing file, it's going to automatically send me a notification via email because that's the option that I picked. Okay. So just so you know, that's kind of an easy way that we can be using some of the built-in options here in SharePoint. Matthew, did you have another question?
Yeah, it looks like someone was wondering, is it possible to tell if someone is working on the file when you open it?
Yes, good question. I'm so sorry. I should have talked about that. Let me go ahead and open this file, this Apps for Leaders again. If somebody else is in that file with you at the same time, what's going to happen is at the top right, there's going to be little circles of their profile. So if two other people were in there with me, I would see two circles there, and I can hesitate and see the name of who that person is. And then you'll be able to see where they're at within the file itself, especially in Excel. Excel actually shows, and each circle is different colored, by the way. So if you have multiple people in there, each person's circle is a different color. But you'll be able to actually see exactly where they're located within the workbook or within the document or what slide they're on, etc. by hesitating. Great question.
Right. And if someone is working within a file in SharePoint, like a SharePoint file, is there any way to tell that they're updating or moving files around in there in real time, or is that not possible?
No, unfortunately, we don't see that. Yeah.
So only within the document itself can you tell if someone's working on it.
Correct. Yeah, because if somebody
Great.
was just right here,
Yeah.
and if they moved a file into the folder or something, it will sync up. After a couple of seconds, it will sync up and you'll see that that file has been moved or it's gone, and you don't know that it went into that folder. It doesn't give you that information. Okay.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Joanne.
All right. You're welcome.
Can I just say real quick?
Yeah.
If you are asking a question, there is a Q&A section on the taskbar. If you could ask the questions in there, it just helps us organize the questions. So thanks everyone for that.
Okay. So another option that I just want to briefly show you is under that Automate, there's also these quick steps. If I go to quick steps, I can create a quick step. And if I want to draft an email when something happens, start a Teams chat, set a value, etc., move a file or folder, copy a folder, you can start with one of these brief templates. Like an example, if I want to say start a Teams chat, once again, it's going to give you the menu at the top where you actually basically fill in the blanks. Now, I'm not going to fulfill this whole thing, but just so you could see, we do have these built-in options where we don't have to go into Power Automate. These are built right into SharePoint document libraries, which leads me also to Microsoft Teams, because Teams has a way for us to access files also. If you go to Microsoft Teams and you go to the left-hand side and click on Teams, you can have all these different teams that you have access to, and each team has a channel. Like right now, I'm in my accounting department in the general channel. When I look at the tabs in this team on the right-hand side, I have this shared tab. That is where anything that you have shared is going to go. So this is a document library. You'll see exactly the same menu going across the top because it is SharePoint. And by the way, just so everybody knows the background of Microsoft Teams is SharePoint. Every time a team is created, it automatically creates a SharePoint site. Just to show you what I mean by what I just said, if I go to this menu across the top of this document library, I'll go to the dot, dot, dot. I can click Open in SharePoint. And it's going to open the accounting department SharePoint site that is directly created when that Microsoft team was created. I can access any of the channels documents. So I have this accounts payable, accounts receivable, business expenses, chart of accounts. If I click on accounts payable, I'm going to see all of the folders and all of the files related to that channel called accounts payable. I could do that same thing back in Microsoft Teams. If I'm here in Microsoft Teams, if I go to the channel called accounts payable and I go to the tabs at the top right and click shared, I'm going to see exactly those same files and folders. So I can work in these files and folders either in Teams or in SharePoint. I don't have to be in just one place. But how do we manage these files? Well, I mentioned that the menu going across the top is the same. What about right-clicking on a file? If I right-click on a file or go to the ... menu, I can see I've got my share icon, but I also have a star. I don't have those other stars with the lines. I actually have a star. That's actually a star. 1 star. That is actually to save the file as a favorite. But if I right click or do this ... menu, I'm going to get the same menu that I saw when I was in SharePoint because it is a SharePoint document library. So if I want to open it, I want to delete it, I want to download it, I want to change the name, pin it to the top, automate it, I can do the same things. So you could see I've got version history. I've got the more category where I can check the file out. So what we just talked about with SharePoint, you can do those same things when you are actually in Microsoft Teams. So this is referring to being in Microsoft Teams, going to Teams, going to a channel, and going to a tab called Shared. Shared is the document library. So it's a great, easy way for you to be able to get in and manage your files. So what if I wanted to be able to get to my SharePoint files, get to all these these Teams files, but I want to do it directly from the application? What if I go to Microsoft Excel? If I open up Microsoft Excel, just to show you on my screen here, let me slide that over here. If I'm in Microsoft Excel and I want to open up a file that is saved to my OneDrive, you can see here's my recent files. And underneath you can see it's called OneDrive and then my name of my OneDrive. But this is actually one that is coming from a SharePoint document library. If I want to go directly into my SharePoint files, I could go to Open. Then I could actually be choosing where I want to bring my files in from. Here's my quick access. So if I want to go to something that I had saved as a quick access, I could open that file directly from there. Now, for some reason, I happen to be logged into the wrong account. It's showing me my other document libraries. Oops, sorry. My quick access is not updating because I was just in a different account. But just so you know, I could access those from there. Now, I also could go to the menu on the right at the top where it currently says OneDrive, Virtual Training Company. That's my business OneDrive. But if I click on that, just so you know, it will open up File Explorer. And earlier, when I was in that SharePoint document library and I talked about that shortcut to OneDrive, if you do that for a document library, you will have access to it from File Explorer and from OneDrive. Let me show you what I mean. If I look at all these files, I'm going to go into this folder. So this is my OneDrive. If I go into all of these different folders, I can have a link to my actual OneDrive and to get into any of my files that I did a shortcut to. So here's a shortcut to a document library that I have called Legal Documents. So if I click that, it's going to show me all the files coming from legal documents, but it's a SharePoint document library. So if I want to open any of these, all I have to do is open it like you normally do in Excel. all changes that you make are automatically going to be saved back to that document library. So you can be working directly within the application. You could go to the SharePoint document library. You can access things directly through Microsoft Teams, or you can be doing things in OneDrive. I'll show you OneDrive in just a second. But just so you're understanding what I just said, because I had mentioned it a little bit ago, when you look at the menu at the top of a document library, here's that icon, Add Shortcut to OneDrive. So right now I'm in the Accounts Payable document library. But if I go to the General channel and I go to the Shared tab, if I want these files to be available when I'm in File Explorer or I'm in OneDrive, all I have to do is click this Add Shortcut to OneDrive, and I'll be able to get to that document library from OneDrive or File Explorer. So I just added General for the accounting department. Let me show you how I can get to it from OneDrive. So OneDrive is your personal storage location. By default, others do not have access to the files there unless you share them. We can share files from SharePoint, Teams, or OneDrive with other people that do not have rights to it currently. But one way to access OneDrive is directly here in Microsoft Teams. If I go to the left-hand side, click the icon OneDrive, it's automatically opening my OneDrive app. On the left-hand side, I have different categories that I can go into. If I click this one called My Files, well, first let me talk about Home. So this Home category, you could see here's my recent files up at the top, but I was just in that Excel dashboards, which was actually coming from Clinic. So if I want to open that, but it's coming from a SharePoint site, I can see it from my recent list, even though it's not a OneDrive file. Here's this file from, or this loop component coming from my accounting department. Here's my files. That's coming from my traditional OneDrive. This file is coming from our intranet that I was in a little while ago and did that Excel file for 2026 upcoming projects. It's available through here without having a shortcut. But if I go to the category on the left called My Files, it's actually going to open all of my folders and files directly within my OneDrive. So here's all my folders. You can see this one looks different than this one. It's the folder icon has the 2-person and this arrow. That means it's a shortcut coming from SharePoint. So here's the name of it. It's the Accounting Department SharePoint site, and the channel is General. So I was just in that in Teams, but I have access to it because I did Add Shortcut to OneDrive. If I click on that folder, you'll see exactly the same folders and files that you saw when I was directly in the SharePoint site or the SharePoint document library. So right here from our files, we have access to all of that. So I can go to any one of them. This one is the company HR. This one is called hardware. This one is legal documents. Again, I mentioned that from the open window. All of those are shortcuts coming from SharePoint document libraries. And it can be directly from a SharePoint site or the Teams channel, the shared tab. So both of those are available through OneDrive. But if you're just at your normal OneDrive folders, I'm going to go into this Excel files. And if I go to a file within my OneDrive, I'm not going to get exactly the same menu options as if I were in SharePoint. It gives us less choices, and sometimes we just don't need them because I'm the only one that has access to it unless I share the file. If I right-click on this file, I'm going to get a pop-up menu. I can open it. I can manage access to it. I can delete it, save it as a favorite. I can rename it. But I'm not going to see all the same things like the automate features or checking a file out. I don't need to do that because by default, these are only available to myself. I do have version history though. Anything that is saved to a cloud, you will get the version history, which is great. But what if I want a file to be shared with somebody else? I want my coworker to have access to a file I have in OneDrive, which, by the way, when I create a brand new file in Excel, Word, PowerPoint, that kind of a thing, it defaults to my OneDrive. Okay, just so you know. But notice my columns. Similar to what we saw in SharePoint, I have modified, who modified it, the file size, but I also have this column called sharing. Sharing is where we can see if it's private, means it's only available to you. If it says shared, like this Excel dashboard workbook, this is a shared file, and I can see on the right-hand side that you shared this file with student one. So I shared this file with student one. They have rights to access and work in this file. The sharing option works exactly the same in SharePoint, Teams, and OneDrive. How do we share a file? Well, if I have this file that I want to share with a coworker or a vendor or whatever, I could right-click on it or just simply hesitate on the name of the file. I can then click Share, this universal share icon. Once you click Share, up at the top you can put in the email address of the person you want to send a link to the file to, or you could just simply click Copy Link, navigate to where you want to put the link and paste it. But either option is going to give the person full rights to the file. They would be able to edit the file along with you. So let's say that I want to share this with student one, my coworker student one. I can add more than one person if need be, but this pencil icon to the right of where you put in the email address is important to understand. If you click that down arrow, by default, it's on Can Edit. But if you want them to only be able to view the file, not make changes to it, or what if you don't want them to make changes to it and not be able to save it by downloading it to their computer? You can make that choice before you send it or copy the link. You then could put in an email message like, here is the file to work on, whatever, whatever you want to write in the email about the file. But down at the bottom is a gears icon that the link can be modified from. So if we click on this link settings, we could actually put in an expiration date that when I email this to them or I copy and paste the link, we could say that after Friday, they can't go into it anymore. Or we could put a password on it. So if somebody else does get a hold of that link, they're not able to go to the link without the password. So just so you know, you do have other capabilities by going into that link settings. Then as soon as you send that, it's going to automatically be shared with that person. So once again, you can go to the share icon, put in who do you want to share it with, put in a message, click send, and they will have full rights to that file. So an invitation was automatically sent to that person. So let me show you what they receive on their end, which, by the way, here's my email telling me that that file was approved. But let me go to my student one so that you can actually see the email. So this is the email invitation that they will receive when you share a file with somebody else. Here's the link to the file. They can click open. But what if they have this link to it and it's been 5 days since it was shared with them? Do they have to come back and try and find this email to get to that file, to click on the link? The answer is actually no, because they can actually go to their OneDrive, which they can access their OneDrive by going to their Microsoft account. So right now I'm in my Microsoft account. I can directly go into OneDrive from there. I can open up OneDrive from Microsoft Outlook. I can open up OneDrive from Microsoft Teams. However you want to get to it, we have a lot of choices. On the left-hand side, we have this shared category. If you click shared, you can see there's two tabs, shared with you or shared by you. And you will be able to, so if somebody else shared a file with me, I'll be able to get to it through this shared category. So I don't have to worry about going back to my email and trying to find the email with the link to the file. It'll always be available in the shared. Now, also here in OneDrive on the left-hand side, you have favorites, SharePoint, document libraries, and OneDrive all have their own recycle bin, by the way. The recycle bin, every time you delete a file, it's going to go to the recycle bin, whether it's SharePoint or here in OneDrive, and you have the ability of recovering that file up to 93 days. So once it's deleted, you have 93 days to get it back out of the recycle bin. So if you want to put something back, you just select the file at the top, click Restore, and you can automatically put it back to its original location. Otherwise, on the left-hand side, when you're in OneDrive, you also have your quick access. So when I was in that SharePoint document library for that company intranet, and I said I wanted to have a shortcut to the quick access, it's right here. So if I click on company intranet, it automatically takes me back to that folder. I don't have to go to SharePoint, go to that document library to get to the files. I can access it directly through OneDrive as well. So you're going to find that you have lots of ways to get to your files. And last but not least, you could actually be using File Explorer. So if you go to your File Explorer, your little folder icon down on your taskbar that is part of Microsoft Windows, on the left-hand side, I have access to my business OneDrive. So if I go to my Jolynn Virtual Training Company, this is my business OneDrive, here's all the same folders and files that you saw a moment ago when I was in OneDrive. Now, I'm not going to have the same capabilities as I did in OneDrive to manage the files, but let me show you that same Excel files folder again. If I go into that same one, I can see the same files that I was working in. And here's that one that I shared a moment ago with my student one. If I right-click on that file, I don't get the same menu. I can add it to favorites, I can share it, I can choose how I want to open it, but I don't get those other same capabilities as I did when I was in OneDrive. I don't get the version history, those types of features. But what we do get that is different than being in OneDrive is the ability to always keep on this device. From File Explorer, if you right-click on a file, let's say that you're not going to have internet connection tonight, but you need to work on this file, and it's a cloud file. You have to have the internet to get to a cloud file. But if I say always keep on this device, it's going to bring this file to be available locally through technically my C drive. So that if I don't have an internet connection, I'm still going to be able to double click and open this file, make changes to it. As soon as I reconnect to the internet, it's going to sync back up to its original location. Notice the status column. It has a green circle here because of the fact that that's the icon saying that this is available offline. But you could see some of these have just a cloud. When you hesitate, it tells you the status is available when online. This one says, when I hesitate on it, takes a second on my computer today for whatever reason, but it will say that it's available when offline. But just so you know, that's an option you can do. You don't want to do it to your entire OneDrive. You will crash your system because that's trying to keep up with syncing constantly back and forth, checking connection. It will be a nightmare. But if you just need access to a couple of files here and there, you can do that. But the thing that you want to think about is when you're done, come back to that file, do a right click again, click again on always keep on this device so that it's not saved locally. You still have access to it, but it's just not going to be held in that temporary location where it's going to constantly be looking at syncing that file. So there's a lot of great things that we can be using back here in a SharePoint document library, within Microsoft Teams, SharePoint document libraries, or by simply using OneDrive. I personally use Microsoft Teams, go to OneDrive the most over going to the internet, opening a document library, opening up a SharePoint site. I usually am in Teams and just do things directly here. Okay. So Matthew, did we have any other questions that had come through?